Alright guys, welcome to another Gradle tutorial. This is episode 3 and about custom tasks. Creating custom tasks, doing whatever we want in the build script. At first you're probably gonna notice that I replaced all the double quotes with single quotes, and that's because using double quotes we create g-strings which give us extra functionality, like for example $variable. You know, you can insert variables like this. But I don't use this extra functionality right here, so I prefer to just create normal Java strings using single quotes. It's just personal preference, you can just keep it that way. Alright, so let's create some custom task. I'm just gonna write down a little example right here and explain it to you. Well, actually, that little example is really small, because that's the whole example. Here in Gradle, let's just say Gradle tasks to list all available tasks and see if the task already exists. And I promise you it does. So there we go. These are all the tasks we have available right here. And we say we see that other tasks lists hello, which is our task. So at first we would probably like to, you know, make this task a little bit more, make it look a little bit nicer. So for example, we would like to say the hello task is of the group greeting, because, you know, it greets you, and the description of this task is greets you. And we can do that, and we're going to see that the hello task is now listed under greeting tasks, and we have the description right here. So yeah, that's not really complicated. Now another way to write this down would be this. We could just take the group greeting and description, take them out of here and put them here, but without the colons, because it's not the map notation anymore. But this would also work. There we go. Now this is all nice, but we probably want some functionality in this task. Okay, so I'm just going to keep this like this right here, because why not? And we're going to say what this task is supposed to do. So I'm just going to write that down as well and explain it to you afterwards. So do last print line hello, so it greets me. And now I can say Gradle hello to execute the hello task, and I'm going to see, you are going to see, that the hello task is being executed and says hello. Great. Now why is it this weird? Why you probably expected me to just put print line hello right here without any do last at all. And you know, if you try this, you will see that it will also work. You know, hello right here. But it works differently. So let's undo this again and have it the way it's supposed to be. And I'm gonna explain to you the way tasks are, you know, what they are made of. A task has, other than its properties like group, description, and more, a queue of actions that it is supposed to execute. And print line hello, actually this whole closure right here, is one of these actions. Do last is simply a method of the task that appends this action right here to the end of the action queue. So right here the action queue is empty, and then we say do last, so please append this to the end of the action queue, print line hello. We could also say do last again, and you know, print something else, print line what's crackin', and this would also work. Oh yeah, it would work if we properly escape the string. So there we go. Hello, what's cracking? And we see that we can have more than one do last, because do last is not just supposed to say this is what happens last in this task, but it says append this to the end of the action queue. Also we have do first, but for demonstration purposes I'm going to put it down here. So do first, print line, hey, I know this guy. And we're going to see that do first appends this action to the beginning of the action queue. So let's say this is the action queue right here, this empty space, and Gradle goes through this and sees do last, so append to the end, hello, then append to the end, what's cracking, and then append to the beginning, hey, I know this guy, blah 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 blah. Okay, so that should be rather simple to understand. Also, one more thing, we can do the following: hello, so the hello task, use left shift and give this, you know, a closure, and just say I was appended using left shift, using left shift. And this is actually the exact same as do last. It's just a shortcut, just a shorter notation. So this is the exact same as do last, okay? We could also go right here and left shift right there and say something, okay? That would also work. Now, there's still this place right here, and before we also put print line hello or whatever we said right in there without any do last or do first or left shift, and that also printed to the console. But that's different because this here, all the action queue is executed during the execution phase, and what we put in here is executed during the configuration phase. So let me just comment that actually. Now, let's say hello from the configuration phase, and let's execute this. And now is the configuration phase. You know, you saw that this configuring projects, blah blah blah. That's the configuration phase, and we see hello from the configuration phase, and then the configuration phase is over for the whole project, and the execution phase starts, which you know, executes the hello task, and then it all happens. Hey, I know this guy, hello, what's cracking? Okay, so that's pretty simple. But another thing, let's say Gradle, you know, let's say tasks again. So that's another task. I'm not executing the hello task right now, okay? I do nothing with the hello task. And we still see hello from the configuration phase. Now what's that? I didn't execute the hello task, and it's not because tasks lists all tasks or something. You could execute anything and you would still see hello from the configuration phase. Now why is that? That's because, you know, that's the configuration phase. That's the whole sense of the configuration phase. In here you can configure the task for the case that it could be executed. So for example, we could say ext for extra properties. Ext, you can put any property in there and say text or say greeting, and we could say hey, how is it going? Okay, so this would be the greeting, and we put this into the configuration phase. You know, it's happening in the configuration phase because we don't put this here in a do last or do first. And then in the execution phase we could say print line greeting, and now let's use a G string because this is a place where we can use it. Greeting, you know. So right here in the configuration phase we set the greeting, and then when we actually want to you know, run the task, we have the greeting ready and we can just perform the action. So let's do that. Okay, now I didn't execute the hello task. I just said Gradle tasks and hello from the configuration phase appears right here. Then it sets the greeting, but now we want to actually see that, so Gradle hello. And we see hello from the configuration phase, greeting, hey, how's it going? Okay, so I hope you got that, because it will be very useful, and you really shouldn't mess with, you shouldn't, you should know the difference between configuration phase and execution phase. Leads to a lot of confusion if you don't. And alright, that's it for this time. Now, let's do something more useful with this task. At first, let's say we want to call this task run. And run is going to be of the type exec. Actually, we want to call this task run jar. Because what we want to do is we want to take the jar right here that it generates and, run it. Like previously we double clicked it or run it from the console, and now we want Gradle to do this for us. So we say that this task, run jar, is of the type exec. Now what is exec? Exec, as you can probably guess, stands for execute, and on the Gradle side, in the DSL reference, we can see under task types that there is exec right here, and actually I have the page open already. Now this is the API documentation, and we see it executes a command line process. So we can start a new process and do stuff right here. And now we have all these guys here. All that we need for now is executable, and we want to say Java, and arguments. So just like we would say Java minus jar, the jar.jar, and some arguments like hello world. Now to simulate this, we have Java already. This is the executable, and the arguments are minus jar, a G-string, the jar task dot archive path, so where the jar archive is constructed. You can see that in the documentation as well, and hello world. Now that's what's going to happen. Okay. So now about this here, this is a G-string, so we can say dollar to assess a variable. The variable in this case is jar, the task, this one, and archive path is simply the path of the jar archive that we actually want to create. You can see that right here. Jar is one of the, you can find it right here. I think under task types there should be jar, and you see archive path, the path where the archive is constructed. Probably too small for you to see, but trust me, that's what it's saying there. Alright, so this is not very exciting, but it works. So, oh yeah, one more thing. To run the jar, we actually need the jar. But what if we have a clean project, we didn't build anything, and then we say run jar? It's going to, execute this, and Java is going to say, hey, wait, this archive right here doesn't exist. So we want to make sure that every time run jar is executed, the jar task has also been executed so that the archive actually exists. And that's pretty simple. We just say depends on jar. So depends on the jar task. Now we already know that the jar task exists, but what, for example, if it would depend on pack my own jar, so another task that also creates a jar. Now if the task would be right here, task pack my own jar, this would work fine, but if we declared the task down here, task pack my own jar, this wouldn't work, because depends on pack my own jar. What is pack my own jar? It doesn't exist yet. At this position, pack my own jar doesn't exist. It's created down there. Now that's no problem. We can just pass a string, and we know, okay, it depends on a task that doesn't exist right here, but we created down here, so that's still fine, just for theory. But we just want to depend on jar, so that's all we need. Now let's say, alright, Gradle jar, not Gradle jar, crap, Gradle run jar. But at first, let's say Gradle clean, to clean the whole folder right here, the build folder. Now whoop, it's gone. So we make sure that we have to run the jar task first using the depends on stuff here. So Gradle run jar. Now the jar task is being executed, and the jar task depends on classes, process resources, and compile Java. So it executes all these first, and then we can finally run jar, and there we see hello world is the output of our program. Alright, just to let you know, we can also type type exec and depends on jar down here. That's also no difference, but I like to put it in these parentheses because it's kind of more beautiful or whatever. I forgot the word right now. Anyway, that's it. To run a jar, there's actually also a task type. Let's just say we make a new task called run of the type JavaExec. Now what's that? JavaExec is a subclass of exec, and you can run the Java classes without even having a jar archive, which is pretty useful if you don't want to pack it every time before you run it, just to test it. So we could say this one depends on classes, and classes is, as we can see, Gradle tasks. Classes, where do we have it? Classes. Assembles classes main. So of the main source set right here, source set main, the classes are assembled and created. So the .class files, that the stuff that we want to execute. So that we need to depend on this. Then we can say main for the main class, and the main class is already right here. So let me just copy that. And the class path also very important, and we can actually say source sets.main, so that one right there. And if we go on to the website of Gradle into the DSL reference, we can go to source set, and we see it has compile class path and runtime class path. So exactly what we need. That's fine, right? So we would just say main.runtime class path, and that's it. Also, we want to pass some arguments to this. Actually just hello world, and that's it. Now we don't have to build the whole jar archive every time we want to run this. Let's try it. Gradle run. And there we go. Compile Java is already up to date because we just used it to run the jar previously. This is up to date, blah blah blah. The classes task is executed, then run is executed, and we see the output of a program, hello world. Alright, that's actually the most important stuff for this episode, but let me think. I think there's still something I didn't tell you. Yeah, there's still something I didn't tell you. So let's make another task. Task hello again, and let's say let's just do it like this. That's fine. We want to say only if, so execute this task only if, for example, we see that Paul is coming at us. So only if yeah, okay, now that's dumb kinda. But anyway, we're just going to say the hello task had, you know what? Only if takes a fucking closure, okay? And we can say we can put any expression in there. What's important is that it returns true or false. So we could also just say true, and that's it. So only if that's true we want to execute hello, and hello has do last, or let me just do it a good looking way, print line hello. Okay, so now hello is going to be executed. Gradle hello. There we see it, hello. But if whatever we put in here would validate, or whatever it gets called, to false, it would probably not happen. Hello, skipped. Alright. Also we can enable and disable tasks, so let's change this back to true and say hello.disabled hello.enabled equals false, which effectively disables the hello task. And we would run hello, and you know, even though it's true and it should print hello to the console, we see it was skipped again because it's disabled. Now if you put something into the configuration phase of the hello task, so print line hello from the configuration phase, and we tried this and the task is disabled, we still see hello from the configuration phase, because you know, it's a configuration phase and probably we want to configure the only if or whatever here. Just remember that no matter what, the configuration phase stuff in there is going to be executed. Also, if I say only if receives false, so everything says the task shouldn't be executed, the configuration phase stuff is still going to be executed. Anything else that I forgot? Yeah, probably, but there's a lot of things that you can know about tasks. Actually, I recommend you to go to the task documentation, and you can see all the kind of stuff that you can do here. You know, for example, you can check if it effectively did in work, and you can say that must run after or for some tasks and get all kind of stuff. And actually every task has a temporary directory that you can query, all kinds of stuff. But that's the most important stuff about tasks for now. Only one more thing and then the episode's over. Okay, so let's say task write greeting. Alright, that writes the greeting to a file. And we are going to say that's not of any type at all. That's it. Every task has inputs and outputs. But forget that. Forget about that, what I just said. At first, let's actually write the greeting. So we want the greeting to be written to the file greeting.txt, you know, whatever. And since this is Groovy, you know, I'm not going to teach you Groovy here, but we can say .text equals and write some greeting in here. So for example, hello fellow citizen. Alright, now this file right there would be created and have these contents written to it. Now the point is that probably we don't want to do this all the time again. At first, let's execute this. Gradle write greeting. Build successful. Let's go and look, and we see greeting.txt right here. Hello fellow citizen. Alright. But now if we execute this again, well, it's still working, but it did all the work again, you know. The greeting.txt file is already there. It doesn't have to do all the work again. So what we would like to say is, if the file already exists, then you don't have to do this. Now the first idea that you might get is, well, no problem, I'm just going to say only if, and going to say file greeting.txt .text equals hello fellow citizen. And you know what? Actually that might work, but maybe not. I didn't even try this because that's not what I'm trying to teach you. But let's try this just because. And yeah, you know, you already see Okay, yeah, actually this is stupid because I put this in the do last closure. I should have put this in the normal closure, and this only goes in a do last closure. So like this, it would probably also work. Let's see. Write greeting, build successful. Okay, so it still did the work. Something's not correct in here. But you know, I'm repeating myself. This is not what I actually want to show you. What I want to show you is that we can say a task has inputs and outputs. Now, we don't really need any input for this task, so we can kill this line. But it has the output, the greeting.txt. That's an output of the write greeting task. So we can say outputs.file actually greeting.txt. You know, this should work. So let's just try it before I say any bullshit. Write greeting, build successful, write greeting again. Up to date. Now this is what I want to show you. The task is up to date. We don't have to execute it again. It's up to date. The write greeting file, the greeting file already exists. So this task can be skipped without problems. Up to date. That's probably also what you saw a lot of times before. Also up here, you know, compile Java, up to date. We already had the classes. It skipped the class. Here it skipped the task for other reasons, because we said so in the only if closure. But here up to date because it checked the output of the task. Now this is working by taking a hash sum of the contents of the file and blah blah blah. But you know, it's working. That's all you need to know. Now if we went and deleted the greeting.txt file and we were going to execute the task again, it sees, oh, write greeting doesn't exist, so it's not up to date anymore, and boom, there it is. It executed the task again. Greeting.txt file is back. Now if we execute it again, you know, you guessed it, it's up to date, it doesn't do anything. I also recommend you to read up on the where is it? Outputs and inputs. Actually, they are properties. So let me just go to task right here, and we see, where is it? Outputs, the outputs of this task, and inputs, the inputs of this task. Also, just to make you understand, the inputs can also stay the same or change, you know. So if the inputs change, the outputs also have to change. So if any of inputs or outputs change, it's not up to date anymore, and we have to execute all the stuff again. So let me just go to outputs, and we see it's an object of the type task outputs, and this has a few methods: dir for directory, file for file, which is what we just used, you know, file object path, and there we go, file object path. Actually, I think I could let this away and just say greeting.txt, or files, multiple files, and that's basically it. Also up to date, when you can give it a closure in which you specify all the stuff that you want to have checked and whatnot. But it's basically the same. We want to register a directory or a file or multiple files to check if the task is up to date. That's the same for task inputs right here, except that we can also give this properties. Where is it? Properties here and property there, and source files. Alright, so read a little bit through this documentation here. It's really useful, and I hope I helped you a little bit with this episode. We are going to keep the run and run jar tasks. Write greeting, I think, is not really that useful, so let's get rid of it. Yeah, I hope I'm going to see you in the next episode. So, alright. Blah 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 blah. See you then.
Alright guys, welcome to another Gradle tutorial. This is episode 3, and it's going to be about creating custom tasks. So we can do anything we want in our Gradle script. Oh man, okay, I can't do that.